Hey guys, how's it going? This is Matt from HolyShift Studio, and today we're doing our first ever tutorial on our channel. We're gonna do something nice and easy today, but it might seem quite daunting to some people that haven't ever done it before. It's using cloth physics. So, say if you wanted to do a tablecloth on a table, or if you wanted to do clothing that drapes over something, or making pillows, anything like that, we can use the cloth we can use the cloth physics in here. That's what we're going to be using today. So first things first, we're going to get rid of this horrible default cube by so select everything with A, hit X, delete it, and then we're going to start by creating a table. So let's start with we'll do it this way. We'll get a mesh cube, tab into edit mode. We're already on vertices. We're going to hit M to merge at center, and now we have just one singular vertice right at the middle. And then we're going to add a skin modifier in here, so that's in the modifiers tab on the right. Add modifier and then select the skin one. Basically what this does is it allows us to use that center vertice to make whatever shape we want, and it follows with a cube around it, which is really nice and easy to work with. Makes creating some shapes that may be a little bit more difficult just a bit easier. You can make like trees and that using this. And then we're also going to add a subdivision surface modifier, and we're going to put that above it. And so what that'll do is it'll smooth out our bends so they're not really tight and weird. Just gives us a bit of a nicer workflow. We'll whack that up to 2, and then we're going to add one more just on the bottom. So you want one above the skin and one below, and then you can create something. So I'm going to use this to create the legs of the table that I'm going to build. So you can make whatever table you like. You can make it square, rectangle, circle table. It's entirely up to you. We're just gonna make a nice simple one. Right, so we've created our basic base to the table that we're gonna do. Now, if you want to resize, say, certain parts of this, all you gotta do is go back into edit mode quick. So say if you wanted, I don't know, if you wanted the end of this to be a bit chunkier or a bit thinner, you can select the vertice that you're on, Control A, and then you can scale that vertice, so you can have it so it comes to a bit of a point like that, or you can have it so that it's a bit bigger, and then you can mess about with it as much as you like. Really, it's entirely up to you. Right, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to confirm all of this. So on this bottom subdivisions, we can up that, so we can go up to like 2 or 3 depending on just on how many you want. Depends on how smooth you want it to be and just what sort of look you want to go for. But advice would be to try and get a look in, exactly how you want it before you confirm it, just so that it's going to be good for you and it's exactly how you want it to look, because it's a little bit easier to change it now than it is later on. So let's do that, and I think we'll leave it at that. Yeah, right. So top one first, so we're doing them order. So you do the first subdivisions. Helps if you're in object mode, so you can't do this in edit. You can't confirm these in edit mode. So apply that, and then apply that. And now when you go back into it, the skin modifier is gone, so now you can select individual vertices on the entire mesh, and you can play with those, but we don't want to do that, because we've already created what we want. And then you can shade it smooth as well by right-clicking, and then just selecting shade smooth, or you can go back in by shading flat. But there you go. Right, so this bit is a little bit rounded, so I'm just going to flatten this out. I mean, this isn't going to be seen anyway because it's going to be the tabletop is going on top, but it just means that we can bring down the volume of this section here just so that it's a little bit more flat. So we're going to go into just a side view, go into X-ray mode as well, and top right, do that, scale it on the want to select just those top sections, scale it on the Z-axis, and just scale it so it's nearly flat, like that. There we go. And there we go, sorted. Right, now we're going to create the tabletop itself. So we're going to do a mesh again. So you can either use up here or you can Shift A, it's a good shortcut. And we're going to add a cube. Actually, no, we're not going to add a cube. We're going to add, we're going to do this, mesh. We'll add a circle. There we go. Or better yet, we can add a mesh. We can add a cylinder. Cylinder's going to be the easiest ways to do this. Bring that up a bit to the top. And then we're going to look at it from this way. And we're going to say we want the thickness of the table to be, let's see about that. And we can adjust that again in a minute as well if we decide that it's a bit too thin or a bit too thick. So just scale it just on the Z-axis and get it to where you want. So it's S to scale, Z to lock it to that, and then go wherever. Then we're going to scale again. And now we want to scale it outwards, but not on the Z-axis because we want to keep the width of the wood the same. So what we'll do is we'll do Shift Z, and now we can stretch that out as much as we like. So we'll go, how big do we want this table to be? Let's go back into this mode just so we can see. So maybe that's a bit too big. So we'll do that, scale, Shift Z, and then we bring it in a bit to about there. Maybe that's about right. Yeah, that looks nice. I'm happy with that. And then we've got the basic table. One thing that I probably should have done but kind of forgot to do is I forgot to add more vertices going around the edge, so it's a little bit blocky, but it shouldn't affect what we're doing. So we'll just do that, hit smooth, and then we're all good. And then if you come down to here, you can go into this tab here, go to your normals, auto smooth, and then it fixes it a little bit, just smooths out the edges, but doesn't make it look funny. You'll find that on some shapes it will look a bit strange, and we can do that on this one as well. And just auto smooth it. It just helps correct the smoothing tool. So if you ever get a cube and it looks funny after you've smoothed it, just use that and it should fix it. Right, now the fun bit. We're going to do the tablecloth. So we're going to Shift A, add a plane, and we're going to bring that up. Let's bring it up to there. There we go. And we're going to scale this. So we're going to go to the top view like this. And we're going to also go into exterior view because that makes it just a little bit easier for us. We're going to go about about that much. So just to get some nice distance from the actual edge of the table. And one thing that I personally like to do, you can leave this as a square and you can keep it so that when it drapes over you'll have longer bits and shorter bits. Or you can tweak it, or you can just use a circle mesh and it will keep it relatively even around the edges. I like to do it so that when I'm on this view, I will tab it, right click, subdivide, and then you now have 4 pieces to it like this. So it just gives you a bit more of a shape to adjust. So we're going to select this one, these middle vertices, because these are the ones we're going to stretch out a little bit. Go to Z, the Z view, top view. We'll scale these out a little bit to about there. There will do. And basically it just means that you'll have a little bit more drop on the edges and it'll just look a little bit nicer, at least in my opinion. That's how I like to do it. Right, so as far as that goes, that shape is exactly how we want it. If you want to create it the same way, you would create it as a square. It's it's entirely up to you. It's all going to follow along the same process when we get to the cloth physics. So what we want to do now is we actually want to tab back into this. Hit A just to select everything. Right click, subdivide, and then you get this little menu down in the bottom left. Bring that up. Now you can use these arrows and you can get it all up to 10, and actually with the subdivision we've just done, this works quite nicely. If you've left it as a square, you might not have quite as small squares as this. You can actually go higher than 10 if you type, so you can set that to say 20 and it does a lot more. But for the sake of this, I'm going to use 10 because we're also going to use subdivisions on this to make more vertices. But this just helps keep it a little bit easier if you're PC especially is lower end, or not quite as powerful. Mine's not the greatest in the world, so that's how we're going to do it. So next thing you want to do is modifier, subdivision surface, go to simple, up that to say 2, just so that we know it's going to work the way we want it to. And before we add the cloth, physics to it, just set this to like frame 1 or frame 0 or whatever you want to set it to. So we're on frame 1, so it'll work out the way we want it to. So we've got that subdivision. Now I want to go into the physics panel here, the physics properties, and we want to select cloth. And we can go back to object view now. We don't have to be in edit mode. So now, in theory, when we play this now, just because we've added that, you can see that the plane starts falling, but at the moment it's just going straight through our object, which isn't what we want. So to create a collision for these two, we want to click the tabletop, and we want to add a collision to that. So this is now a collidable surface, which means when the cloth interacts with it, it will actually hit it and it will react to it. So as you can see now it's creating that cloth-like look, and that's exactly what we want it to do. So we can pause that now and we can go back to the first frame. And I'm actually a little bit inclined after seeing that to click on this, scale this tablecloth down just a bit, because I didn't like how low it was falling. And this is all things that you can play around with, and you can make it look however you like. We can drop it again, see what it does, see how low it falls. Yeah, it's a bit better. Yeah, I like that. That's nicer for me. I prefer it to fall a little bit less, so that'll work out well. Brilliant. Right, pause that again, and we can reset that back to there. We can also move this plane down just so it's a little bit closer to the table, so it doesn't have to drop quite as far. And then something I like to do is in the vertex mass, I like to bring this down to a bit lower, so like 0.1, but we can actually drop this to like 0.05. And what that is, it's basically sort of the weight of each vertice in the plane. So if we drop that now, okay, that's created a bit of a funky effect. So now they're probably a bit too light. So we want to go back, and we'll up this to, like 0.08. Let's see what that does. And this is something you can mess around with just depending on how you want to go with it. So that's still creating this slight wrinkled effect, which we don't really want. So we up this. We'll put it at 0.1. We'll do 0.1. And we'll reset it and do it again. And now it's falling, and it's sort of wrapping around the edges, as you can see. But we don't really want all of that on top, so we're gonna maybe up that to 0.3 again. I think that'll be, oh no, 0.2, there you go. 0.2 fixes it for you. That's sorted it out for this model. And I think it varies depending on what you're creating. Sometimes you can have that lighter or heavier, and just entirely depends on what you're creating. Depends on how you want to run with that. So we're letting the animation play out just to let the cloth drape over the table. So we'll let it get to somewhere where it sort of settles a bit, and it looks like it's already settling quite nicely. Yeah, that's already settled quite well for what we want. And then we can pause it, and so far it's looking pretty nice. It's looking almost like a tablecloth, except for all these squares. But we're going to fix that now. So back in the modifier properties, where we added the subdivisions earlier, and now there's a cloth one in there, as you can see. So the reason we have the subdivision first is so that we can have the smoothing of the object, and then we can add the cloth animation on top of that, because we want it to animate on top of it. And then we'll add another subdivision, but we want to add this one now onto the bottom of it, and we can up that to 2. And now you can see there's a little bit of clipping, so we might just want to go back to the first one and reanimate it a little bit, just to give it that new fresh look, so it's not clipping through the edges, because it is clipping through the edges a little bit there. So we might want to change the collision distance as well, which we can do in the physics tab. So we can go down, And when you get far enough down, you'll have a little tab here named collisions. Put that down. We can pause it for the minute. And this, so distance of collisions. So if you feel like you want to get the cloth to sit a little bit closer to the object or a little bit further away, you can mess with this. Or if we really wanted to, we could hide the cloth for the minute. Take this object, tab into it, and if we go to a side view, because that'll make it easier, and go to X-ray, hit 2 on your keyboard, and you'll go into edge selection, and then you can just highlight through the middle, just select all those edges, and it should select them all the way around for you. But you just do it like that, and it won't select any of those, because these are the only ones we want to adjust. And then on the left, we go to our bevel tool, just here. Do that, and you can start pulling it out a little bit until they're nearly touching each other, and then just use your mouse wheel, and you can up the amount of edges there are, and just so that you can basically smooth out the edge of your table even more, so it's a nice round shape, and then you don't have any points on it. And that should fix our issue of having things clipping through. Yeah, there you go. Now you don't have anything clipping through on that. Should have mentioned that earlier, but there you go. Trial and error, as we always say. Right, so the next step is, now that we've done our subdivisions, you can see that it's a lot smoother, but you still have some little squares, so we can just click on this, shade smooth, and that gets rid of it all. And now we have a rather nice looking tablecloth that sits very nicely over this circular table, exactly how we want it to look. I'm pretty happy with that, and hopefully if you're following along, you'll be happy with that as well. And feel free at any point, if you want to pause the video and look through these settings, you can do it as I've been going through them. If you feel free to pause, rewind, replay as much as you like. It can take a little bit of getting used to sometimes, especially when you're new. But I feel like this is one of those things, it's more daunting than it seems. Or no, it's not as daunting as it seems, sorry. It's a lot easier than what you'd think. But it's a really nice effect, and it's just gives it a bit of realism as well. Texturing, if you want to texture the cloth, I highly recommend doing that before you apply these. Because if you apply these and then you try and do it, you've got to worry about the shape of the cloth as it is now. And that's just, it becomes quite challenging to texture it. So what I would recommend is, if we go back to frame 0, because we'll have to reanimate again in a second anyway, tab it. So we go into edit mode, and then we'll go to top view, sorry, there we go. And then we'll deselect everything, select everything again just to make sure. Hit U on your keyboard to unwrap, and then we're going to project from view, like that. And then we'll go into our UV editor up here, and then you can see just here that you've got the shape is unwrapped nicely, and we can scale that and just sort of put it roughly to the edges or the bounds of the box, and you can move it around or whatever. But that's the easiest way to get this to texture. And you can put whatever texture you like on it. If you want to apply a real texture, go for it. If you want to just apply a colour, you can do that as well. If you're doing a hyper-realistic scene, you might want to add like a proper cloth texture and go with that, and then you might want to add a texture to the bottom, whether it's metal or wood or whatever you want to add. But for now, we'll just stick with a nice basic colour. So we'll just create a new material in the materials tab. We'll assign it to that, and we'll make it. Let's make it like a bit of a. Make it like a bit of a creamy colour, just like a nice eggshell-y type colour sort of thing. And then we can go into the materials view, and then you can start to see colours of things. So we can select the tabletop, add a new one of those, you can make that. You can sort of go into like an orangey colour and then bring down the thing there, and you can fuss about with that, make it a bit brown, just to simulate some like wood texture. On the bottom bit, you can make it, I don't know, whatever you like. You can go crazy with colours, textures. It's all personal preference at the end of the day. Maybe make it a bit of like a shiny metal. We can make this a bit of like a, maybe like a bronzy kind of colour. Whereabouts do we want this to be? That's not quite right. it's a little bit of trial and error. You figure out what you like and sort of go with it. Whereabouts do we want to be? Maybe like a little bit of a goldy sort of tint like that, and then you can bring it down a bit, make it a bit more, bit dull. There you go. And now we've got a nicer looking thing, and you can fuss about all that as much as you like. We're just going to reanimate this quick. So we go back into the layout tab at the top, go into materials view, and you can see all your colored things like that. We'll hit the play button, let it animate again. Now, we want to go into this tab, and we actually want to confirm these. So you have to be in object view. You don't want to be in edit mode or anything like that, because that'll just make it take longer. I just made the horrible mistake there of going into the edit mode and then coming back out, because it resets it every time. But I'll skip this bit. I'll reanimate it one more time. Right, so got my cloth to where I want it. Happy with that. I'm happy with how it looks. And now we're gonna apply these. So like I said, object mode. You want to apply them in order. So apply the subdivisions, top one, then the cloth, and then the bottom subdivisions. And now you have a fully fleshed mesh. So as you can see, you can now adjust every individual vertice or line or whatever you want to do. But now you've got it to where you want it, you probably won't want to touch that anyway. So that is probably going to be it for this video, guys. So thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment. You know, if you've got any questions or got any tips even on if you think there's anything that we could have improved on, please let us know. And yeah, I think we're going to leave it there. That is how you create a tablecloth over a table. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.